Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer, and today, as part of my B-Tier guides, I'm going to take you through a build guide for Sten in Dragon Age Origins. Sten comes built as a two-handed warrior when you recruit him. The biggest issue is that he only has one specialization point at level 14 and has no specialization point at level 7. So mechanically speaking, Sten is the worst non-animal or construct companion because he just has less possibilities than everyone else. However, that doesn't mean that you can't build him decently if you want to take him along with you on your adventures. Sten's starting skills are pretty good. He gets 3 ranks in combat training, 1 rank in survival if he's level 9 when you recruit him, and a 2nd rank in survival if he's level 12 when you recruit him. The 3 ranks in combat training are amazing, because it means you only have to increase his combat training 1 more time to max it out, and then he'll have access to all the regular combat talents. You may be wondering how it's possible to recruit Sten so late in the game, at level 12, seeing as the village of Lothering where you can recruit him from becomes unavailable after doing the first main quest. Simply put, you can do a lot of side quests without ever finishing a main quest. There are a lot of quests in Denrim and the Brazilian Forest in particular, and you can also go do the DLC areas such as Soldier's Peak, Return to Ostagar, and Honleith. And so you can easily get to level 12 doing only side content. I don't recommend doing that, however, because your companion's auto-leveling is not very good, especially their attributes. So if you want to recruit Sten, I recommend you do it as quickly as you can so that you are able to choose exactly how he levels up as soon as possible. Sten's initial talents are as follows. From the warrior tree, powerful and threaten, and then precise striking if he's level 6, taunt if he's level 7, and bravery if he's level 9. Powerful and threaten are really good. Powerful gives him health and reduces fatigue from wearing armor, and you'll want him to have threaten active so that he can tank for your party. Precise striking isn't important for his build because I'm recommending a tank build for Sten, and you only use precise striking for certain damaging builds. Taunt, however, is really good for him to use on an enemy that is attacking another character, especially a squishy character like a mage or a rogue. You can set his tactics to taunt an enemy who is attacking a specific character such as Morrigan or your warden, or you can set his tactics to taunt the nearest visible enemy if you want him to spam his taunt ability whenever possible. Early in the game, he won't have a lot of stamina, so I recommend using taunt only to redirect enemies from attacking your squishies. From the two-handed tree, Sten starts with these: Pommel Strike, Indomitable, Stunning Blows if he's level 10, and Critical Strike if he's level 11, then Sundering Arms, and Shattering Blows if he's level 12, Mighty Blow, Powerful Swings, and Two-Handed Strength if he's level 8. Pommel Strike, Indomitable, Sunder Arms, and Mighty Blow are the main talents I use with two-handed characters in the early and mid-game, and Sten already has them unlocked. Pommel Strike is a cheap and decently fast stun, very good to use on mages who are concentrating on a spell, or other characters who are in the process of using an ability you don't want them to finish, usually a talent that will CC one of your allies. Indomitable should always be active because it makes Sten immune to knockdown effects. Sunder Arms does decent damage and also gives a penalty of -10 to attack to the target if they fail a physical resistance check. Mighty Blow has a +10 attack bonus to strike, and it's an automatic crit if it connects with the target. I like using Mighty Blow on frozen or petrified enemies for a chance to shatter them. Shattering Blows is a good passive that gives a bonus to damage against constructs. Those are golems, sylvans, corpses, and skeletons. You will fight a decent amount of constructs throughout the game, so it is good to have a two-handed warrior in those areas with you. Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, there is a bug in the vanilla game that means no actual additional damage is applied to constructs, so you will need to use Dane's Fixes, one of the mods I mentioned in my top 8 essential mods video, to fix the bug so that damage applies properly. Two-handed Strength is a good passive, not for its first property, since I don't recommend using powerful swings on a tank, but because of its second property, increased armor penetration by 25%. This means that your two-handed warrior will be able to melt through some of the highly armored enemies like ogres, revenants, and other big bad creatures. Critical Strike is also a good talent, but it really mainly is just an autocrit. The only added bonus it has is being able to kill a non-boss enemy if it is under 20% HP, but at that point you'd probably be able to kill it in 1 or 2 attacks anyway, so I only use Critical Strike in the same way I use Mighty Blow on enemies that are frozen or petrified to hopefully shatter them. Sten already has most of the good talents you need, but there are still a few more I recommend taking. From the warrior tree, Bravery is an amazing passive that gives a lot of bonuses: damage, physical resistance, mental resistance, and crit chance, and the crit chance increases for each enemy above 2 who is attacking the warrior. Death Blow is also a pretty decent passive on Sten since he has those auto crit abilities like Mighty Blow and Critical Strike. He'll most likely land the killing blow on quite a few enemies, so it makes sense for him to regain stamina from that so that he has enough available to use his talents again. From the two-handed tree, I recommend maxing out the entire tree. Sunder Armor is great to use in a situation where you want to reduce a target's armor so that you and your allies can deal more damage to it. Destroyer is an amazing passive because each of Sten's attacks will reduce the effectiveness of the target's armor. Unfortunately, there is a bug here as well that only applies this effect if you critical strike, but if you use Dane's fixes, you can take care of that. Two-handed sweep is the only area of effect weapon ability available to two-handed warriors, so I absolutely recommend to take it. I recommend using it when surrounded by enemies. It also has a chance to knock them down. Since Sten only gets one specialization point, I recommend getting the highest value tank specialization, which is Champion. From the Champion talents, Warcry gives a penalty to attack to nearby enemies, and with the superiority passive, it also has a chance to knock them down. Rally is an amazing sustained that gives bonuses to attack and defense to nearby allies, and the Motivate passive increases the attack bonus. If you get the Dane's Fixes mod to address some of the combat talent bugs I mentioned, you can also get Sten a second specialization point with the Follower Specialization Points bug fix. If you do have this second specialization point for Sten, I would recommend using the Templar specialization, mainly for the Righteous Strike passive so that each melee hit against the spellcaster drains some of their mana. Of course, as I mentioned in my previous Alistair build guide, the other Templar abilities are also useful. Cleanse Area can get you out of a pickle if one of your characters has a nasty spell on them like Paralyze or Curse of Mortality. Mental Fortress gives some mental resistance to help against various spells and the like, and Holy Smite is a nice area of effect ability that can stun or knock back enemies. Since there aren't that many AoE abilities for warriors, having an extra one means quite a bit. The reason I choose Templar as a second specialization instead of Berserker or Reaver is that Templar doesn't have any sustained abilities. As a two-handed warrior, Sten will already be using Indomitable at all times to be immune to knockback and Rally once he gets it to buff his allies, and he'll also want to use his abilities quite often, so it can really be difficult to use the Berserker or Reaver sustains on top of all of that. Since two-handed warriors need more stamina to use their abilities, I recommend every time you level up Sten to give him 2 points in strength and 1 point in willpower. You will also want to be on the lookout for gear that gives extra willpower or stamina. As I always do, I recommend maxing out combat training first, and then maxing out the survival skill. In my opinion, Sten doesn't need any of the crafting skills unless you want him to perhaps use some grenades. In that case, you can give him a rank of poison making, so you can use acid flasks, fire bombs, stuff like that. If you want to have a few more tactics slots to work with to set up his AI behavior in combat, you can invest in a few ranks of tactics once you've maxed out the important skills. As I mentioned in the attributes section, you want Sten to have items that give him extra stamina. Being a two-handed warrior, he doesn't need any points in dexterity. That means he'll have more strength to do more damage than a sword and shield warrior, but it also means that he has less defense, so he's easier to hit. So to counteract that, you'll give him gear with high armor so that it mitigates some of the damage he takes. For weapons, I recommend the following. Very early game, you can pick up the Chasind Flatblade from the Korcari Wilds for a decent weapon to give Sten when you first recruit him, but swap it as soon as possible with something better. Asala is Sten's sword that you can get during his companion quest. It's unfortunately not that good, but it is a decent early and mid-game weapon due to its bonuses to armor penetration and attack, and you can use it temporarily. Faith's Edge is a weapon that has decent stats. It is similar to the Dragonbone Cleaver, but much less of everything. It is free, however. You just need to kill Kolgrim during the Urn of Sacred Ashes quest to get it. The Starfang greatsword is a weapon you can craft at Soldier's Peak after reclaiming it. It has good stats, but since you can also choose to craft a longsword version of Starfang, I don't necessarily consider this a must-have, and the next 3 weapons that I will mention are much better anyway. The Dragonbone Cleaver is an amazing battle axe, but it is a DLC item that you only have access to if you got the Vartoral's Fall achievement during the Witch Hunt DLC. It's the second best two-handed weapon. It has bonuses to damage, willpower, which gives extra stamina, as well as critical damage. If you don't have the Dragonbone Cleaver unlocked, however, I recommend the Nug Crusher Maul as an alternative. You can get it from the Return to Ostagar DLC, and the plus 100 bonus to stamina and the chance to stun are really good. The best two-handed weapon, bar none, is the Chasind Great Maul, giving bonuses to damage, armor penetration, stamina regeneration, and stamina. It is very expensive, and you can only purchase it from Gorham and Denrim after you finish 3 main quests though, so you have to have a good early and mid-game weapon before that anyway. If you can't afford the Chasind Great Maul, you can just keep using the Dragonbone Cleaver or the Nug Crusher. They will serve you just fine. In terms of armor, I recommend using either massive or heavy armor on Sten. You do have to be careful with his fatigue and stamina so that he can use his abilities often and keep up his sustains, Because of this, I'm going to give you less choices than I usually do in my build guides, because Sten can really benefit from some armors way more than others. I recommend 2 sets above all else with Sten: Kaelin's set and Wade's Superior Heavy Dragon Scale. Kaelin's set comes with armor, mental resistance, critical damage, physical resistance, chance to dodge, as well as minus 25% fatigue and plus 5 health regeneration in combat. That's really good for what Sten needs, and you can find Kaelin's full set in the Return to Ostagar DLC. Wade's Superior Heavy Dragon Scale armor is a heavy set that I think is the absolute best in slot for Sten, especially if you substitute the chest piece with Yvonne the Great's mail, which you can purchase from Heren in Wade's smithy after you completed 3 main quests. Yvonne's mail has amazing stats, and you also get the bonus from Wade's set with it. Keep in mind that you will have to only commission 1 set of Drake Scale armor from Wade until you are able to buy Yvonne's mail, because after making the second Drake Scale armor, Heren will refuse to trade with you. You can get Kaelin's set pretty early, since you can go to Return to Ostagar pretty much whenever after you're done in Lothering, so you can use Kaelin's set on Sten until you manage to get the Drake Scales and Dragon Scales to craft Wade's Superior Heavy set, as well as to finish 3 main quests so you can buy Yvonne's mail. As a third option, I can also recommend the massive set Warden Commander armor, which you can get from the Soldier's Peak DLC by killing Sophia. You can also go early to Soldier's Peak, just like with Return to Ostagar, so whichever set you go for first, Kaelin's or the Warden Commander's, you can safely use on Sten until you're ready to upgrade. Of course, if you would rather use Wade's set for yourself, on your Warden, or on a different character, then Kaelin's and the Warden Commander set work just fine on Sten, they just aren't the best in slot. In the very early game, before you've gotten these, you can just use the regular heavy chainmail set that you can loot from the Bandit Leader in Lothering. If you're using Wade's set or the Warden Commander set, note that they don't have a helmet associated with them, so in that case I recommend the following helmets. Executioner's Helm for the extra 25 stamina. It's possible to loot this from various places or to purchase it from Cesar's special stock in Denerim if you've done the Trial of Crows questline. The other helmet I recommend is the Light Helmet Longrunner's Cap, which is surprisingly good for Sten considering the fact that it's a light helmet. You can loot it from the Carta Hideout from Jarvia, or you can find it in Jammer's Box as part of the Jammer's Stash quest, still in the Carta Hideout. I like it because it has extra stamina regeneration, so if you think you have enough max stamina from attributes and gear, you can use this cap instead of the Executioner's Helm so that Sten can regenerate stamina faster and use his talents more often. Now for the accessories. As always, remember that there are some highly contested items, the Spell Ward and the High Regard of House Dace amulets, the Andrew's Blessing and Cinch of Skill for maneuvering belts, and the Life Giver, Ring of Ages, and Key to the City rings. I will always mention these items, but never recommend them in any of my builds, because it's up to you to choose who gets to equip these items and whether you have enough coin to purchase some of them in the first place, or if you've unlocked them from achievements yet or not. With that out of the way, here are some good belts. The Dalish Hunter belt, sold by Bodan in the party camp for stamina regeneration. This would be my top choice, or the sword belt purchasable from Gorham and Denerim for armor penetration. Some good amulets. Feral Wolf Charm, a DLC item good for armor and nature resistance. Heart of Witherfang is also decent, giving 1 to strength and magic and a whopping 50% nature resistance. Pearl of the Anointed gives +1 to all attributes, so it's pretty decent. The Shaper's Amulet gives +2 to willpower if you don't want to use any of the other amulets, so it's pretty good. The Parvolum Willstone has the same stats as the Shaper's Amulet, but it is more expensive. Some good rings. Band of Fire for Constitution, Fire Resistance, and Spirit Resistance. The Dawn Ring for +4 to Strength. The Harvest Festival Ring for Strength, Dexterity, and Attack, though you will likely want to give this to a Sword and Shield or dual-wielding character. Morrigan's Ring for the +2 to Willpower is also okay if you happen to be romancing Morrigan. Ring of the Warrior is good for the +2 to Strength and Dexterity, but similarly to the Harvest Festival Ring, you will likely want to use it on a Sword and Shield or dual-wielding character. The Lucky Stone is a DLC item that gives you +1 to all attributes, and the Wicked Oath is a DLC item that gives extra critical damage, armor penetration, as well as stamina regeneration. I consider this one to be very good on damage or melee characters, as well as Sten, so you will likely have to choose between Sten and another damager. As I mentioned, I prefer to have Sten be a tanky defender type two-handed warrior, though equipped with the right gear, he will also do a good amount of damage. If you're just looking to use a preset, the defender preset is fine for Sten. Otherwise, if you want to set up tactics for yourself, here is what I recommend. Indomitable and Threaten should always be active, so that Sten is immune to knockdown and he can draw enemies to attack him instead of the party. And I also recommend for Rally to be active once you have enough stamina to be able to afford it while still having some stamina left over for active abilities. Use Taunt when an enemy is attacking one of your mages, or perhaps your rogues, to keep them safe. Use Mighty Blow and or Critical Strike on enemies that are frozen or petrified to try to shatter them. Use Two-Handed Sweep or Holy Smite when surrounded by at least 2 or 3 enemies to deal lots of damage as well as possibly CC them. If you just want to debuff enemies and possibly knock them down, use Warcry in similar situations. I recommend using Pommel Strike on enemy mages to stop them from casting spells, and I also recommend focusing mages first since they're the most powerful and can completely ruin a fight for you if left unchecked. You can use Sunder Armor on enemies that have a medium or high armor rating. Sunder Arms is a fine ability to use for some damage, but I don't recommend putting it into tactics because Sten can run out of stamina, especially early on, quite easily. Later on though, if he's equipped with gear that gives him plenty of stamina and stamina regeneration, you can add it to his tactics as an extra damaging ability. If you would like to and have the health poultices to spare, you can also set it up so that when Sten is under 25% HP, he drinks a lesser health poultice. However, if you have a mage and the mage can use heal and group heal, then you don't need to add this to Sten's tactics, but do keep an eye on his health, and if the mage can't heal him in that moment, select Sten and make him use a potion. In conclusion, I think Sten can be a perfectly viable warrior even with only 1 specialization point, though obviously he becomes better if you use Days Fixes to give him the 2nd specialization. I think two-handed warriors are the worst in Origins out of the whole series because they're just so slow, and other than two-handed sweep, their attacks only hit 1 enemy as opposed to multiple enemies like in Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition. But even so, they can still do pretty well. Personally, I don't use two-handed warriors very much, and I tend to just not recruit Sten for personal reasons, but regardless, whenever I do play with Sten in my party, this is the build that I use for him. I hope you enjoyed this character build guide for Sten in Dragon Age Origins. If you're looking forward to seeing more of my Dragon Age videos as well as occasionally some videos on other RPGs, do remember to subscribe and leave a like and a comment while you're at it. This has been B Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.